If you heard of Aston Martin, what's the first car that comes to your mind? Most might say the legendary iconic DB5, which has been used for the James Bond movies for decades. If you know the Aston Martin DB car series, then you most definitely know the Vantage car series. The Vantage is an iconic part of the long history of the British Marque. Over the years, it has become a performance icon, a fast machine, and one of the best luxury sports cars on the road. In this video, we will take a look back at the history of the Vantage name. The Aston Martin Vantage is a beautifully designed two-seater sports car with a reputation as being one of the most reliable Aston Martins in recent years. It is a rolling supermodel that is something special, a high-level sports car designed to deliver luxury, comfort, and supercar performance but can be used regularly. The Vantage has gone through inconsistent changes, yet a significant leap forward from one generation to the next. The name Vantage has been used on Aston Martin cars since the 1950s, and back then, Aston Martin first used the Vantage name on high-performance trims of the early DB cars, DB2, DB4, DB5, and DB6. It wasn't until 1972 that the Vantage became a standalone model. David Brown, a machine tools manufacturer, bought Aston Martin and Lagonda in 1947 and incorporated them as Aston Martin Lagonda Ltd, which became connected with costly and elegant grand touring cars in the 1950s and 1960s. In the early 1950s, the DB2 was the first model to bear the Vantage name. Only 250 units of these were built, featuring a 2.6-liter Lagonda inline-six with big SU carburetors, an Intel camshell, and a high compression ratio. The one you're looking at is thought to be the first real Vantage, making 126 horses, but initially, the higher compression ratio made the engine illegal for the British market due to the post-war absurdity measures restricting UK vehicles. However, it was sold in the United States and was raced in motorsports by Briggs Cunningham. The DB2 Vantage will go 0 to 60 mph at 11 seconds with a top speed of 122 mph, which isn't terrible for a 1950s car. We move on to the DB4 Vantage that came out a whole decade later in 1961, while the regular DB4 came out in 1958. You could argue that the DB4 Vantage was actually the first real Vantage where it was visually distinct model rather than just a standard with a more powerful engine. Key to the Vantage was the fitting of the Special Series engine, which had not 2 but 3 SU carburetors and revised 6-cylinder heads with bigger valves and a higher compression ratio. Outside of that, the block remained the same as the standard DB4. It made 270 horses, a useful increase of about 10% over a stock DB4, but the aesthetic change was minimal, as the headlights were pulled from the DB4 GT with chrome surrounds. The Vantage model changed into the Series V DB4 chassis model in 1963. The final series of the DB4 Vantage had become the DB5 in 1964. This is where things easily get confusing because the DB4 and DB5 only differ in minor detail. Perhaps the biggest change was an all-aluminum inline-six engine enlarged from 3.7 liters to 4 liters, along with the 4-speed change to a 5-speed gearbox and 3 SU carburetors, which delivered greater top-end performance. It made a whopping 325 brake horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque and reached a top speed of 162 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest cars in the world at the time. The DB6 Vantage, however, had the most difference, being its longer wheelbase, side profile, and rear-end cam-style design was similar to the Ferrari 250. Other than that, everything else was held over from its predecessor. In 1967, Aston introduced the DBS model, which was slow in development because, like the 2 DB cars that came before it, Carrozzeria Touring was supposed to design the DBS, but they went out of business the same year, so Aston hired Williamstown's Engineering to design it in-house. The DBS first launched with a 4-liter inline-six engine and then switched to a V8 engine in 1969. When Aston did that, customers were pleased with more power and performance it had given, and that engine formed the basis of Aston V8s for years to come. By 1972, the first full model named AM Vantage arrived and the car split into two models. While the DBS already had a V8, the inline-6 powered trim got new bodywork and became the Vantage. In any case, the 6-cylinder Vantage made 325 horses and the V8 made 350 horses in the DBS. The 1972 and 1973 Vantage was the least powerful and expensive model in Aston Martin's range at the time. The Vantage wasn't a success over its 2-year run, as Aston sold only 70 units versus 288 V8 DBSs alone. So it was time for Aston to drop the 6-cylinder engine as a whole to focus on the new Bosch V8 engine. When the DBS stopped in 1972, David Brown sold Aston Martin to an investment bank consortium, and Williams Wilson became the company's owner until 1975. The year 1977 saw the first ever V8 Vantage, which had car fanatics drooling with the monstrous 5.3-liter V8 shared with the luxury Lagonda sedan, but used high-performance camshafts, larger inlet valves, and bigger carburetors mounted on new manifolds. The 390 brake horsepower Vantage took off as the fastest production road car on the planet at top speeds of 170 miles per hour, with acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.2 seconds, 1/10 of a second quicker than a Ferrari Daytona, and it was dumb fast to be named as Britain's first true supercar. Despite its front-engine design and 4 seats, it competed strongly with a set of mid-engined supercars of all time and all-around performance. For example, the Lambo Countach or Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer or Testarossa. The styling was similar to the DBS, with aerodynamic upgrades to help speed it along. The V8 Vantage can sometimes be nicknamed the British Mustang GT because the twin headlights and the back-sloping roofline reference the Ford Mustang with British DNA. It had a closed-off hood bulge with a blank hood vent and a subtle rear lip spoiler, fierce fenders, a Vantage badge on side vents, and nice wheels. The Vantage equipped larger roll bar as well as Coney dampers and shortened springs. This became Aston's flagship car until 1989, and the convertible called the V8 Vantage Volante showed up in 1986 in the lineup, the same year when the V8 Zagato was released. Between 1986 and 89, the Vantage's engine liters enlarged from 5.3 to 6.3, making between 400 to 450 brake horsepower. The Vantage was replaced as Aston's flagship model by the Virage in 1988. In 1993, the Vantage name was brought back as a high-performance model of the Virage. You could easily tell the difference between the base Virage and Vantage as they remained limited, expensive, and the hand-built flagship of the Aston Martin range. This time, Aston Martin went insane with their next project, which is named the V8 Vantage V600, and just like its predecessor, it was a straight-line performance monster. The new car featured a wider wheelbase and continued with the 5.3-liter V8 engine, where unlike the previous 1970s and 80s Vantage that is naturally aspirated, this beast fitted mighty twin superchargers with optimized intercooling and a bigger exhaust, resulting 600 brake horsepower and 600 pound-feet of torque, hence the V600 name. It literally makes the same horsepower and torque, which means it can get going from 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds and can hit a genuine top speed of 200 miles per hour or 322 kilometers an hour while weighing 4,400 pounds at the same time. It was the most powerful Aston Martin road car built for over a decade until the 177 showed up, and in this era was just as fast as the Lamborghini Diablo in a set of supercars. Can you imagine a big, heavy Grand Tourer that's not a supercar that does 200 miles per hour? Well, Aston Martin did it right here. The Le Mans V600 Vantage had an adoring look, with only the roof, doors, and wing mirrors shared with the Virage. It was also wider and lower and had 4 round taillights, new wheels, rear suspension, and new interior details to differ from the Virage. Most V600s were sold with a 5-speed manual gearbox over automatic. This car was full of steroids, forming a benchmark for many Astons that followed. In March 1999, the Vantage was used again on a high-performance model of the DB7. The DB7 Vantage and Vantage Volante debuted at the 1999 Geneva show with a massive 6-liter V12 engine under the hood. It was another rebirth for Aston Martin, and the Vantage lived up to the hype until 2004 with 420 brake horsepower and 400 pound-feet torque to the back wheels, giving it a 0 to 60 mph time of 4.9 seconds. It also boasted a top speed of 186 mph or 299 km/h and an exhaust note of joy. After the DB7 Vantage came into the DB7's life cycle, as sales of the base DB7 with the supercharged inline 6 had reduced, so it was only produced in 1999. The DB7 Vantage appeared smaller and weighed much less, and features smooth styling, a mashed front grille with fog lights, a trunk spoiler, 18-inch wheels with Bridgestone tires, and a luxury interior with options. In 2002, a special edition of the DB7 Vantage was produced to celebrate the Golden Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. Only 24 of them were built, and the DB7 Vantage set new standards of power, refinement, and reliability for handmade luxury sports cars. With the DB9 taken over from the DB7, Aston Martin unveiled the eagerly awaited V8 Vantage at the 2005 Geneva Motor Show. The name returned to a standalone model and was first shown as a concept car in 2003. It immediately caused a worldwide sensation as it allowed Aston Martin to enter a new division of the premium sports car market with a genuine alternative to other cars. That being said, Aston Martin took the Vantage back to the basic 2-seater V8 sports car to compete with other sports cars such as the Porsche 911, 997, as well as GT cars like the Jaguar XKR Coupe, which arguably looks similar to that Vantage. Likewise, this Vantage was milked for 13 years in the British market until 2018 with several improvements. It was pretty, small, and powerful with an all-new 4.3-liter dual overhead camshaft V8 engine designed, pushing 380 horses, made it to a 6-speed manual gearbox. Aston Martin adopted a dry slump lubrication system for the V8 that is often used in race cars. That system allows the engine to sit very low in the body to lower the center of gravity, which in turn helps to improve handling, the overall balance, stability of the car, and improve engine stamina. You could argue that this was the most popular and reliable Vantage ever made. It won accolades in Top Gear as the best sounding car of 2005 and the coolest car of the year. It was called the Baby Aston due to its size and price compared to the V12 DB9. The car later got an update in 2008 where the Vantage now had a 4.7-liter naturally aspirated V8 with a power increase to 420 horses, the same power as the prior DB7 Vantage, providing extra reserves of mid-range performance and top speed. In 2009, the V12 has reunited again for the Vantage with more power, torque, and aerodynamics. It was only 110 pounds heavier than the V8 model and had the equivalent 510 brake horsepower of the V12 DBS. The weight came off by using lighter materials, including carbon fiber with a curved weight of 3,700 pounds, enabling the car to run from 0 to 60 mph in 4.2 seconds and had a top speed of 190 mph. The V12 Vantage didn't reach the US market until 2010. However, as the crash structure needed to be redesigned. In 2011, Aston unveiled the V8 Vantage S designed to give a sportier experience. It essentially was a more potent version of the stock V8 model with upgrades to the chassis, braking, and aerodynamics. The suspension was stiffened for the S model and included a deeper front bumper with a carbon splitter, carbon diffuser, larger side seals, and a larger tailgate lip. Yet, the major difference in the Vantage S was the new 7-speed Sport Shift auto manual gearbox and 430 brake horses from the engine. Then 2013 saw the V12 Vantage S, a sportier version of the regular V12 Vantage with a similar ideology as the V8 Vantage S. First of all, it produced 565 horses and 457 pound-feet of torque from a revised 5.9-liter V12 motor, capable of a remarkable 0 to 60 mph time of 3.5 seconds, thanks to the Sport Shift gearbox and a 200 mph top speed, making it the fastest production Aston Martin at the time, next to the 177. It sported a carbon fiber front and back grille, carbon roof, lightweight alloy wheels, etc. The car was lighter and featured a new 3-stage adaptive damping for the suspension system, new carbon ceramic brakes, and a unique track mode for improved track performance. In 2016, Aston launched an all-new performance brand AMR, derived from the initials of Aston Martin Racing. The AMR range of cars was built to draw a connection with their motorsport program. Aston Martin catered to a dramatic growth of sales with the AMR brand since its birth. This led them to unveil their extreme track toy Vantage GT12, a limited production edition of the V12 Vantage S inspired by Aston Martin's successful in GT3 racing. Its exterior and interior had full carbon fiber with track-ready revisions such as a fixed rear wing and a revised front fascia to save weight. The power was boosted to 600 horses and 461 pound-feet of torque and a curved weight of 3,450 pounds. This Vantage takes the experience and knowledge earned on the racetrack. There was also a GT8 Vantage which had a V8 based on the GTE race car with 440 brake horsepower with similar lightweight techniques. Aston then released the 2017 V8 Vantage AMR Pro that shares design traits from both the Vantage GT3 and GTE race cars and puts out 500 horsepower. Not too long before the next-gen Vantage arrived, Aston launched the V12 Vantage V600 Final Edition in 2018, and only 14 of them were built. It was the final iteration model that marked the end of old-school styling, interior, powertrain, and the manual of the Vantage with a bang. The name was a tribute to the iconic Vantage V600 from the 90s and had many unique bits that set it apart. As implied by its name, the Vantage made 600 horses, which allowed it to have a comparable performance to modern supercars. Its front fascia seems to have a facelift with a bigger grille, reminiscent of the Aston DB11, as well as new wheels, larger flared fenders, polka dot hood design, and everything featured from every prior model. And you want to know something? It sold for freaking €1 million. The long-awaited new current V8 Vantage arrived in 2018 with a major redesign sharing its architecture with the DB11. It is more stylistically daring and sharper than the model it replaces, with the front fascia looking like the face of a shark with a mouth wide open, nice wheels, and an aggressive look from front to back. The new Vantage was more luxurious in the interior, pricey, and had an all-new powertrain. Aston Martin had no budget to come up with the next engine for its volume sports cars, and so the new Vantage entry-level DB11 V8 and DBX SUVs sourced the Mercedes-AMG 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine. The Vantage with 503 horses and 505 pound-feet of torque with a 195 mph top speed and 0 to 60 mph in 3.6 seconds, and came with an 8-speed auto gearbox. It is the first Aston Martin car to use an electronically controlled differential with torque vectoring. That's an insane amount of performance for the entry-level Vantage. It wasn't until the Vantage AMR track-focused car that came out in 2019 to get a manual option and then became standard, followed by the release of the Roadster model in 2021. A couple of years ago, there was still a fair demand for a V12 model, and people questioned, will Aston revive the legendary V12 Vantage once again? The answer from Aston's boss, Andy Palmer, is yes. For 2022, they introduced the V12 Vantage in a form of 3, the Coupe, Roadster, and Speedster. Aston not only confirmed that this will be the most powerful Vantage ever made, but will be the last V12 Vantage to exist. While the previous V12 Vantage was naturally aspirated, the 2022 model is powered by a 5.2-liter twin turbocharged V12, sharing with the DBS Superleggera with 700 horses and 555 pound-feet of torque, and will reach 0 to 60 mph in 3.4 seconds. The car was described by Aston as the final edition, denoting the end of the V12 Vantage. The modified body makes extensive use of weight savings, carbon fiber in its structure. Aston claims this Vantage has a 20% improvement in power to weight ratio when compared to the V8 version, whilst using several styling modifications has a positive effect on aerodynamics. And all in all, only 333 units of this model will be produced and already sold out. And so far, there is still yet new Vantage models to come. And now, that is a wrap for this video. I hope you all really enjoyed the Aston Martin Vantage Evolution video. If you car and Aston Martin fanatics enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the like button if you really did enjoy it. And like I say, every video I put up, you are more than happy to give me any car suggestions in the comments down below, and I did not forget any of them. Peace out, stay safe, Chris the Radar, out.